And what if everything we thought we knew about the origin of the Aztecs was only part of the story, built before the age of ancient DNA? Ready to discover how genetics is now rewriting, backed by evidence, the true birth of the Aztec Empire? In the suspended silence of a world before machines and screens, another kind of science steps forward. It does not yet have sparkling tubes or panting sequencers. It wears dark robes, feathers, thick inks. It is called chronicle, codex, wounded memory. And it is through it, only through it, that the face of those we call today the Aztecs first takes shape. This name, they do not speak it. It is born later in the damp studies of European scholars. 19th century men unfold stained manuscripts, read lines knotted with Nahuatl and Castilian, search for a form to give these peoples who fell beneath Castilian steel. They settle on a convenient word, a total word: Aztecs. Under this banner, they chiefly place the Mexica, those who inhabit Mexico Tenochtitlan, the island bristling with temples and canals. Around them, they also gather the allies of the Triple Alliance: Texcoco, the learned sister, and Tlacopan, the more discreet one, both bound by oaths of war and tribute. To approach this world, the scholars of the post-conquest era have only one path: the witnesses of the collapse. In the 16th century, in the dust of the first monasteries, a Franciscan gathers indigenous voices. His name is Bernardino de Sahagún. Between the 1540s and 1585, he listens, translates, compiles. With Nahua scribes, he weaves a gigantic web of stories, plants, gods, days, battles. His work takes shape: Historia General de las Cosas de la Nueva España. Pages where Mexica elders deliver what they remember before time carries them away. Beside him, other pens rise. At the end of the 16th century, the Crónica Mexicayotl is written, attributed to Fernando Alvarado de Sosomoc, an indigenous nobleman, heir to lineages that saw glory and downfall. He recounts from within the dynasties, migrations, alliances. Not far away, Diego Duran, a Dominican, writes around 1581 his Historia de las Indias de Nueva España e Islas de la Tierra Firme. He too draws from Nahua memory, from paintings, from songs. All of them write in the harsh light of the conquest, between cross and sword, between the ashes of temples and the stubborn voice of survivors. From these books emerges a founding scene. The Mexica are not born in Tenochtitlan. They wander at first. They come from a place that floats, elusive. Aztlán, some say. Others murmur Chicomostoc, the place of the 7 caves. Still others line up names that ring like spells: islands, hills, caverns, all draped in myth. The colonial codices, painted after the conquest, preserve the trace of this journey. In the Boturini Codex, in the Alban Codex, in the Mendoza Codex, tiny figures move forward, bare feet on winding strips of land. Glyphs mark the stops. Dates line up. Priests carry sacred bundles. Standards snap in color. But no modern shovel finds these first homelands. No excavation, no trench reveals the certain ground of Aztlán. Archaeology, patient and stubborn, digs the north, scrutinizes valleys, sifts ruins. Nothing stands out as the original land of the Mexica. Genetics, still mute at that time, does not decide the matter either. Aztlán remains suspended. Neither simple fiction nor confirmed place. A pivot between memory and myth. What does become fixed, however, is the moment when the Mexica appear, visible, in the Valley of Mexico. Archaeologists probe the layers of earth beneath the current megalopolis. They work back through sediments, date charcoals, read ceramics, and a consensus emerges. The Mexica settle in the valley in the 13th century of our era. Between 1200 and 1300, groups speaking Nahuatl emerge, disperse, search for soil in which to take root. Indigenous annals, recopied and translated, converge on a bright date, 1325, the year they found Tenochtitlan, on an island in the lake, where an eagle, motionless on a cactus, devours a serpent. From then on, the curve tightens. From this year, engraved like an oath, the Mexica build their city, raise their dikes, trace their chinampas on the mirror of the waters, erect their tiered, gleaming temples. They pass from wanderers to warlords. They forge the Triple Alliance, extend their tributes, break cities, vassalize others. From 1325 to the dawn of the 16th century, they weave an empire. Shifting frontiers, trade routes, bloody conquests, ceremonies of sacrifice. Finally, in the years 1519 to 1521, the Spanish wave crashes into this architecture of stone and flesh. Conquest brings down the empire, but it leaves behind inhabited ruins, bones, archives. Enough, centuries later, to rekindle the traces. In this world that predates genetics, another key is nonetheless being forged. Discreet, scholarly. Language. The Mexica speak Nahuatl. This speech is not isolated. Through its sounds and roots, it responds to other languages stretching from north to south, from deserts to plateaus. Linguists at the end of the 19th century observed these kinships. J.W. Powell, then Edward Sapir and others, compare words, trace sound changes, reconstruct common ancestors. A large family takes shape, Uto-Aztecan. Within this network, Nahuatl is a southern branch. Further north, other languages, on the lands of Sonora, Chihuahua, Arizona, New Mexico, carry echoes of this same stock. 20th century linguistics refines these links. It shifts the lines on the map. It places the probable area of origin of these languages in northwestern Mexico or the southwestern United States. It does so without bones, without DNA, solely through the sound pattern of words, through the rules governing the mutations of consonants and vowels. One hypothesis dominates. From these arid regions, Uto-Aztecan speeches move down toward the south, spread out, branch off, all the way to central Mesoamerica. Archaeology, for its part, tries to match its shadows to this linguistic framework. In northern Mexico, in the valleys of Chihuahua, stand the ruins of Casas Grandes, Jaquime. Adobe walls, rooms in enfilade, copper objects, seashells brought from afar. Further west, the slopes of the Sierra Madre Occidental bear other material traditions, other pottery, other settlement patterns. Some researchers suggest links between these cultures and populations speaking Uto-Aztecan languages. They imagine human flows, migrations, the drifting of communities from north to south. But these are still only hypothetical bridges. No ancient genome has yet confirmed these lineages. History is built from sherds, village layouts, ceramic motifs, and the debate remains open. At the heart of this debate, the elusive figure of Aztlán still hovers. Is it a historical place, fixed somewhere in these northwestern provinces, on the edge of a lake, at the foot of hills? Or a mythical mirror, condensing ancient movements, perhaps centuries old, transformed into a single narrative? Historians clash in their books, opposing interpretations. Some want to see in it a distorted memory of an actual departure. Others lean toward a symbolic construction, a space of legitimation. No archaeological site stands out as Aztlán. No inscription links a concrete toponym to the song of the codices. Thus, the question remains suspended, like an island in the fog. However, beyond temples and codices, another revolution is taking shape. Slow, almost imperceptible. It begins far from the ruins, in laboratories where blood cells are counted and enzymes are measured. Between the 1960s and 1980s, human population genetics forges its first tools. Blood groups are examined. The ABO and RH systems are cataloged. Frequencies are recorded. Enzymatic markers follow. Variations in the proteins circulating in the blood. Discrete signatures of inherited differences. Then come microsatellites, those short DNA repeats that vary from one individual to another, and mitochondrial DNA, which passes from mother to child, a fragile thread linking generations. At that time, Mesoamerica is still just a dot on the research map. Gradually, however, attention turns toward Mexico. In the 1990s and 2000s, studies expand. Teams collect samples among the Maya, the Zapotecs, the Otomi, and contemporary Nahua groups. They analyze mitochondrial DNA, Y chromosome markers, autosomal fragments. The results appear in the American Journal of Human Genetics, in PNAS, in Human Genetics. They describe considerable internal diversity, measure percentages of Amerindian, European, African ancestry. But all this still offers only a view of the present, for the pre-Hispanic past continues to slip away. No Aztec skeleton, no skull from Tenochtitlan has yielded its DNA. The climate works against molecular memory. In Mesoamerica, the soils are acidic. Rains seep in, ruin the molecules. Heat and humidity tear the double helix, break the fragments of information over the centuries. In these tropical and subtropical lands, ancient DNA degrades quickly, too quickly. Many pre-colonial skeletal remains preserve only invisible crumbs of genome. The very idea of reconstructing complete profiles seems chimerical. Yet, at the dawn of the 2000 to 2010s, a new forge is lit. European and North American laboratories develop targeted enrichment methods. Rather than trying to read everything, they learn to capture precise portions of the genome, to fish amid the noise for the most informative sequences. High-throughput sequencing, next-generation sequencing, emerges like a cascade of data. Billions of fragments are read in parallel. In clean rooms, behind airlocks, strict protocols multiply. Coveralls, gloves, masks, to prevent any contamination. From very ancient human remains, already half dissolved in the earth, they manage to extract a few crumbs of DNA that are still usable. One bone proves more valuable than any other. The petrous part of the temporal bone, nestled in the skull, one of the densest in the human body. In the 2010s, researchers show that this pars petrosa often preserves DNA better than any other bone tissue. Suddenly, tombs that were thought to be mute begin to whisper. A path opens toward the pre-Columbian populations of the Americas. Even in Mesoamerica, even in these hostile climates, hope is reborn. The hope of making the dead of the Aztec era speak. For this voice to rise, guardians, institutions, and laws are needed. In Mexico, the Instituto Nacional de Antropología e Historia, the INAH, stands as a bulwark. For decades, its archaeologists have been excavating, classifying, preserving. In the heart of Mexico City, where the Templo Mayor rose like a beating heart of Tenochtitlan, the INAH has been conducting a titanic project since the late 1970s. Beneath the streets and buildings, layers of superimposed temples appear. Offerings are unearthed. Hundreds of human remains spring forth, sacrificed, buried, deposited according to rigorous rites. Tlatelolco, the merchant sister of Tenochtitlan, also yields its dead. Other sites in the Valley of Mexico are revealed. All these bones belong to the nation's heritage. Federal laws protect them, regulate every sampling. No one pierces a fragment of tooth. No one drills a pars petrosa without the approval of the INAH. Archaeological heritage is sacred, not out of superstition, but because it embodies centuries of memory. Ancient genetics, to access these relics, must accommodate this strict legal framework, with committees, authorizations, protocols. Far away, in Europe and North America, other players are getting ready. In Leipzig, Germany, the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology rises like a citadel of ancient DNA. The laboratory of Svante Pääbo, a pioneer of these techniques, invents gestures and methods there that change the way we listen to bones. Later, other researchers, such as Johannes Krauss, take over, extending the investigations. At Harvard, David Reich sets up his own laboratory, dedicated to ancient human genomes. Large, interdisciplinary teams form, ready to collaborate with the institutions of the countries whose dead they analyze. Soon, bridges are built between these distant centers and Mexico. Mexican researchers from the UNAM, the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, and from the INAH begin dialogues, negotiate projects. Ancient genetics is not done in a single country, but in networks. Funding flows into these alliances. CONACYT in Mexico, the National Science Foundation in the United States, European foundations. On the pages of agreements, lists of specimens take shape, analysis plans, ethical commitments. In the corridors, a vast question resounds. It is not only scientific, it is intimate, political, burning. What will the DNA of the inhabitants of Tenochtitlan reveal? Are the populations living in Mexico today, those who still speak Nahuatl, those who bear indigenous features in the countryside and in the cities, the direct descendants of these former inhabitants? Or have the conquest, diseases, and intermixing broken the thread? Genetics is assigned a task: to clarify the continuities and discontinuities between the pre-Hispanic populations of the Valley of Mexico and today's indigenous peoples. But this task hides another, more subtle one. The Aztec Empire is not a uniform bloc. Tenochtitlan rules, but it reigns over a mosaic of cities, provinces, conquered peoples, and allies. The researchers want to know whether this mosaic can also be read in the genes. Do Mexica elites bear a distinct signature, formed by controlled alliances, selective unions, and the circulation of nobles coming from elsewhere? Or is the empire founded on a genetically close population, a continuum where differences are mainly a matter of language, clothing, and political loyalty? Today's indigenous communities, for their part, are watching these projects closely. Indigenous organizations and cultural institutions see in this research both a promise and a danger. A promise, because genetics can attest to a deep ancestry, a tangible link with pre-Hispanic populations in the face of centuries of devaluation, racism, and erasure. A danger, because reducing identity to biological markers can freeze, immobilize, and reify what is living and in motion. Ethical protocols, consultations, and informed consent are needed. Researchers must commit to sharing the results, to discussing them with the communities concerned, not to locking them into categories. Beyond Mexico, the storm is already here. In anthropology journals, in opinion pieces on research ethics, voices are rising. They question the use of genetics to define the origins of indigenous peoples. They denounce the risk of political instrumentalization and brutal simplification.
A DNA profile does not tell a culture, a language, a history of resistance. It can be overinterpreted, used to contest rights, to rank groups, to rigidify identities that are, by nature, historical and relational. Thus, on the eve of finally delving into Aztec bones, the scientific world finds itself caught between two forces. On one side, the unprecedented power of molecular tools capable of reading in the dust of centuries. On the other, the necessity of respecting the living, of not letting numbers and graphs erase the voices of the peoples. The fate of research on the origins of the Aztecs is being decided there, in this tension. Between sterile laboratories and community assemblies, between colonial archives and high-throughput sequencers, between the burning call of truth and the caution imposed by history. Above this complex scene, the question remains, relentless, like a summit still invisible behind the mist. When the first Aztec genomes rise from the earth, what will they really say about those who, today, walk on the ruins of Tenochtitlan?